There's a few more pretty critical things that I hope to cross off the list in the next few weeks. And then myself and my wife can genuinely start having conversations about when we're going to move up here. Right now, as we talk about that, it seems like it's a little bit further out there than we anticipate. But getting gravel down was definitely one of the big ones. Now, this kind of gravel is what's called pit run. This gravel has not been through a rock crusher, it hasn't been through a separator. It's got some big stuff in it. But what it does have that most gravel doesn't have is a lot of sand. This should make really good road base after a winter or two of driving on it and pushing it into this very clay-rich soil. It should be perfect to put another layer of gravel on. But getting this down right now is already helping with mud. I put it down pretty thick in a few of the critical spots. Using Terrell's tractor, I was able to get it spread out really good. I think we'll use the dump truck now to push some of the bigger rocks down into the soil. There's been a number of instances along the way where I've had the opportunity to look back and, with hindsight, question whether or not I should have done it that way. But there's also been just as many, if not more, things where I didn't know what to do and I just had to try. Now, in the very beginning, the idea was that we would put the house more in the center of the property and the shop would be right here where it's at. We quickly figured out that the way I was building the house was going to cost significantly more. This is why the concrete foundation is sitting where it's sitting. The concrete foundation will now be the shop at some point in the near future, hopefully by next summer at the latest. Having a shop that's 40 feet by 40 feet is a lot bigger than any shop I've ever had, and it will definitely get used. But we've got a lot of money tied up in that foundation. If we could go back and do things different, we definitely would have done that. But there were some external pressures that caused us to do that. Once we did decide to focus on the house, we initially thought that having a 20 by 40 two-story house would be more than sufficient. Frankly, I think 1,600 square feet is more than we need. But what we didn't have in the original floor plan was a place for the solar batteries, a place for the water heater, a place for the water softener if we choose to put one, basically a utility room. This addition here is going to give us that utility room. It's also going to give us one more bedroom. It's going to give us one more bathroom. And it's going to give my wife the pantry she's always wanted. Of course, I wish that I'd poured this pad when I poured the pad last year, but truth is I didn't have the perspective then that I do now. My perspective has definitely changed a number of times along the way. When I first used a trencher instead of the backhoe to dig the footings for the addition, my initial thought was that it would save on the cost of concrete. The backhoe bucket was almost 24 inches wide. Code does not require that the footings be that wide. Why would I put that much concrete in the ground? After using the trencher, not only was it not as straight as I hoped it would be, but also it was not as wide as it should have been. So I'm now going back and cleaning up the trenches, getting them to the 12 inches wide, and getting things as level as it possibly can be, ensuring that the rebar and the concrete is done in a way it will not come back to haunt me. I asked my son Rhett to come up and help me bend the rebar and get it tied off. He was happy to do this. Having Rhett up here helping me reminded me a lot of the time I spent with my dad. When myself and Cedar first got married, I had this idea that I would never have any more than maybe 2 or 3 kids, because frankly, I never had a whole lot of alone time with my dad growing up. It was always me and my brothers. After 20 years of marriage and 5 kids, I realized that the time that my dad spent with me and my brothers created relationships that will last much longer than this life. I hope that I can give my son Rhett some of these same feelings. When I was about his age, I thought I had nothing in common with my dad. Looking back on my dad, I realized that I had everything in common with him. Looking back on my life, I realized that the person that I am was probably more influenced by him than anybody else. I didn't wear boots and Wranglers in high school. I thought I was a skater just like my son does for quite some time. But after high school, I started wearing boots and Wranglers, and if somebody had to ask me why, I would say, because my dad did. When I was about Rhett's age, we went down to Chihuahua, Mexico for a reception for my sister. And my brother-in-law's father talked my dad into going out to his ranch and doing a little calf roping. I'd never seen my dad rope a calf up to that point in my life. I spent the afternoon watching him and Max team rope, and I realized there was a lot about my dad I didn't know. Oftentimes when we would have family get-togethers, we would get out a rope, find a bucket or find something to throw a loop at, and my dad never missed. As I work alongside with my son, it's quite obvious that he enjoys this stuff, especially when I let him do it and get out of the way. He asked me how old I was the first time I took on a job this big. I told him I never have. He asked me what other construction trades I worked in before I started plumbing. I told him I've never worked in any other construction trades. He looked at me a little confused, but I think he figured out what I was saying. I've made some mistakes along the way. But I'm certain the end result will be a very well-built home that's warm, that's comfortable, and that's full of pleasant memories. If nothing else, my job as a father is to create as many of those memories as I possibly can for my kids. That being said, the amount of time that Rhett saved me helping me lay out the rebar is immeasurable. The only other things I have left to do is rough in the toilet and the bathtub and put in the stop and waste valve, then order concrete.